All right. Thank you guys very much for coming. Really appreciate you using your pod for this time. I'm going to do a quick introduction of Mr. Jaffe, and then I'm going to let him take it from there, and you guys will have a chance to interject and ask some questions along the way. So if you have a question, please just hold it until we call for questions, and I'll come around with the microphone, and you guys get a chance to ask. Mr. Richard Jaffe is a serial entrepreneur, published poet, author, and part owner of the NBA Phoenix Suns. He started his first company, NutriFoods International, better known as Guido's Ice Juices, the day after graduating college. After years of struggling, they turned it around, and Guido's became the #1 selling frozen novelty in the United States. Richard went on to take the company public in 1984 and sold it to the Coca-Cola Company in 1985. Richard then co-founded SafeSkin Corporation, a latex glove company at the height of the AIDS epidemic, when new healthcare regulations led to a huge surge in demand for gloves. Constantly innovating, they developed the first powder-free, hypoallergenic latex exam glove, which became the #1 selling exam glove in the United States. They went public in 1993, and in 1996, SafeSkin was voted Forbes magazine Best Small Company in America. He went on to sell the company to Kimberly-Clark Corporation in 2000. Richard published a book of poetry in 2007 and became a best-selling author with his daughter Charlie when they published Turning Crisis into Success in 2019. He has been a longtime member of the Young Presidents Organization and was the marketing chairman for the 2008 Golf US Open at Torrey Pines. He and his wife Ann have a son Brett and 2 daughters, Charlie and Maxie, all who attended SDJA from kindergarten through 12th grade. Richard and Ann live in La Jolla, and he currently writes, speaks, and mentors entrepreneurs on the starting and scaling of new ventures. Can we give a quick round of applause to welcome Mr. Richard Jaffe?
Thank you, Adam. Thank you all for being here. Before I get started, I want to let you know that here's the book, Turning Crisis into Success. For the students in the class, I brought you a copy, which I'll sign afterwards if you'd like. And for those who are not in their class, for $5, you can get it on Audible and listen to it. It's on Kindle, it's on Amazon, but it's a worthwhile read. It reads like a mystery, and it's very entertaining. Also, Adam's going to provide handouts for all the slides we see, so he'll be able to get you handouts after the class. So most people see my achievements of building 2 businesses, taking them public, selling them to Fortune 100 companies, but they don't see the endless number of crises, foreclosure notices, the times I thought we were going broke and the business wouldn't make it, or the time where I thought I would lose my house. The way I think I can provide you the most value or share the most important lessons I've learned is that not focusing on the things I've achieved, but rather to focus on the holes, the challenges that I had to face. What were the strategies mentally that gave me the strength to get out of those holes? Oftentimes we think this is purely a business practice, but in reality, the things that make us stronger are the same things that will allow us to weather the huge business crisis and crisis at home. They are the same things that allow us to show up in the hard moments for our family and friends, to allow a depth that helps us soar. So your destiny is not a straight line. It's a circuitous. When I was in high school, I could never imagine building 2 companies and taking them public. I could never imagine being a part owner of the Phoenix Suns. Your success is going to be dependent solely on you, not your parents, not your boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse. It's really going to be dependent on you. And there are 3 things that are going to be very important. First, it's the choices you make. Second, it's the people you meet throughout your life. And third, it's the lessons you learn as you go forward. We're all authors to our own destiny. Nobody does it for us. Your challenge is going to be finding your own path to happiness and success. So before I get started, I'll talk about crisis that's in the book, that talks about in the book. So crisis is inevitable, okay? The question is, will it catapult your growth or will it hold you back? We're all going to have crises the whole life. We're humans. It's going to be family, it's going to be business, it's going to be relationship, it's going to be health. You know, when I was running two businesses, I was very blessed. My father, may he rest in peace, was the chairman, and I was the CEO and president. And I had everything set up, running smoothly, and he'd come into the office and ask questions and tell people what to do. Finally, I'd say, Dad, stop it. You're creating all these crises for me. I can handle it myself. He said, son, I'm only trying to help you. I said, how are you helping me by creating crisis? He says, let me teach you a very important lesson. Crisis is just change over a very short period of time. Let me repeat that. Crisis is just change over a very short period of time. He said, I'm helping you to change quickly. Now, as infuriating as that was, it was true, okay? And while we're going through it, we never want to go through it. But looking back, we realize we get out of crisis, and we do change quickly. The real key is, how do you learn how to make crisis your friend? And don't be surprised. When crisis comes, that gives you an opportunity, a chance to make a difference quickly. The key in any crisis is define the outcome of where you want to go. Then use that to say, are my decisions getting me closer or further away? And if the decision doesn't get you closer away, don't do it. And make sure all the people around you, same thing, even in your family, understand what's the outcome you really want. After we finished publishing the book, Charlie and I got interviewed. And they asked her a question. They said, you're very close to your father. You've known him for 27 years. What did you learn in those 4 years writing the book that you didn't know prior to working on the book? She took a New York minute and said, hey, my friends and I all think we have to prove how smart we are. But in reality, every crisis my father got out of, he asked for help. And asking for help is a strength. It's not a weakness. People want to help. Let them help. I know when, for example, back in October of 1990, we took all the money from Coca-Cola, dumped it into the glove business, lost all the money, and the banks in Malaysia, where our factory was, were foreclosed, had a foreclosure notice, and they were calling my personal guarantee. And it was just miserable. Okay, now my wife, who's wonderful, said, don't worry, honey, I'll go back to work. I said, honey, you can make $60,000, $70,000 a year as a food service director. I owe $10 million. You take care of the kids who are 3.5 and 6 months, and let me figure it out. And so I said to myself, what do I do now? Because we had a chance to lose a house, the kids were young. So as a member of YPO, I decided to open up the directory and pick a name out of the Malaysian YPO group. And I called and I asked for the chairman. And he called me back the next day and I explained, look, the bank is trying to foreclose. We just need another 30 days. Do you know anybody at the bank? And he says, I don't, but another YPO used to be chairman of that bank. Why don't you call him? I said, great. So I called, and to my surprise, he picked up the phone himself. Okay? I explained the situation to him. I said, can you help me? I said, do you know anybody there, and can you help me? He said, I hired everybody there. He said, I can't promise you anything. Let me make a call and see what I can do. Well, that Friday, the next 2 days later, my partner walked into the bank to the number 2 guy there who hated them. For whatever reason, he just wanted to shut us down. Anyway, I get a call that night, and my partner says, what the heck did you do? I said, what are you talking about? He said, for a half hour, the guy yelled at me every dirty name he could. I said, well, what happened at the end? At the end, he gave us 30 days to replace the bank and promised he'd be there to close us down. Well, I said, what are you complaining about? I got you 30 days. Go find another bank. Anyway, fortunately, within 30 days, we found another bank. They took the first bank out, and from there it grew. So the lesson there is I reached out. I didn't know anybody, but give people a chance to help you. Ask for help. When we just rely on ourselves, we might have 1 or 2 choices. But when we get help from other people, we might have 5 or 6 different choices. So I've picked 5 different lessons to share with you today. There are many more, okay? And what I'll do is I'll walk through them, and afterwards I'll open up for 1 or 2 questions before I move on to the next one. So first, controlling our thoughts. There are very few things in life that we control, okay? But we do control our thoughts, or at least most of them. The mind, though, is like a fertile garden. Whatever you plant in your mind will grow. If you put negative thoughts in, they will grow. If you put positive thoughts in, they will grow too. So, and when negative thoughts come in, you can't stop them. But treat it like a wave coming at you. Dive under and come up the other side. Don't let them grow. The second thing I like to teach my kids is, if you do not like the way you feel, change the way you think. Now, anybody in here play golf? You got any golfers? Okay. Well, I play too, and we all make mistakes. But whenever I hit a bad shot, what I do is I say out loud, I love this game. Because I really do. I might have hit a bad shot. But we all really love the game. But I'm trying to convince myself to be positive, get rid of the negative thoughts of the bad shot. And so that's an example of how to change your mindset. You control what you think about. Not what comes in, but what you keep in your mind you control. And we don't control what happens to us, only how we think about it. So don't react, respond. Okay? Think about it. What do you really want to do? How do you stay positive? How do you react in a positive way? The other important thing is to accept the things we can't change. So many people spend so much of the time, 80% of the time, on the things we can't affect. And they waste their time and only spend it on the other 20. If you can accept the things that you can't change, and then use all your might and all your mind on the things you can change, that's how you can control your destiny of where you go. The other thing I tell our salespeople all the time is, don't change the present. Create the future. Don't see how things are today and make it incrementally a little better. Take a look in the future. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? And then live into that. For example, of changing controlling our thoughts, my first business was an Italian ices business. Okay, we put little Italian ices or fruit juice in a cup, and we put it on a tray, and it went around a conveyor belt and into the blast tunnel. But invariably, the turns built up ice, and the cups fell off, and it jammed up the machine. And when I first started, now I was 22 at the time when I first started. When I first started, I got so upset every time it broke down. We lost money, we lost production, things like that. For the first month or so, it was just miserable. And then I woke up one day and said, you know what? I now know it's going to break down 5 times a day. Okay? And that was my expectation. And I went in there, and the days it only broke down 3 times. I said, I saved 2. Okay? So I started looking at the breakdown. I accepted the things that I couldn't change. And I changed my perspective to look at it in a positive way. The other thing is, when I was really in trouble in the latex business, we were really out of money. And I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. Anybody here read that? Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in that, he basically said that we should write our affirmations. Affirmations is a description of what we want in the future and what we're willing to give for it. At the time, we had no money. We couldn't sell any gloves. It was really hard. Anyway, I wrote my affirmations. I said I wanted to sell 10 million gloves, and I wanted $1 million in the bank. We weren't selling any gloves, and I was broke. Okay? Anyway, I wrote it up. I put it on my mirror in my bathroom to read it every morning and every night. And not only did I do that, but I actually put a little red dot in the middle of my watch. And every time during the day I looked at my watch, I repeated my affirmations. because I didn't want to go broke. And I would tell you, I truly believe that's what helped us be successful. By the end, 10 years later, okay, we ended up making 6 billion gloves a year, okay, or 500 million gloves a month, and had tens of millions of dollars in the bank. But I go back to the fact that I visualized it, I saw it, I lived into it. So if there's something you really want, okay, see yourself having it already, okay, and then say, what am I going to give up in order to achieve that? And in the book, it talks about what my actual affirmation was. Second thing I want, first, any questions or comments on that? Okay. The second I want to talk about is separating self-worth from achievement. And this is really hard to do. Many people can't do that. We are not our bank account. Just because people have money doesn't make them better than anybody else. But the real key is so many CEOs sell their companies and they're miserable, they're unhappy. Why? What is it that they've got enough money, but what it is they no longer have the acclaim from the people coming to them. And they're not happy with who they are. They were happy with what they were doing. Success is always fed by other people, but happiness is built by ourselves, with ourselves. And the key to happiness is really learning to accept ourselves and become our own best friend. I'm going to talk about that a little later, but it's hard as teenagers and 20s. We don't like ourselves sometime, but the real key is how do we learn to become our own best friend? That's really a challenge. So remember that happiness is not dependent upon what happens to us, because we don't control that, but rather it's really about how do we react to the challenges and misfortunes that life lays before us. We're all going to have things happen to us we can never imagine, to our families, to our friends, okay? The real key is how do we control our response? Here's a great example for in October 1990, when I got the foreclosure notices and the personal guarantees being called. I was miserable. I was scared. And that night, we were supposed to go to a birthday party, okay? And I said to my wife, I don't want to go. I got to figure this out. And she said, no, we committed to go. Your best friend's going to be there. We're going to the party. And after 40 years, I now learn how to say, yes, dear, okay? But we ended up going to the party, and I was surrounded by a lot of my good friends. And they asked how things were going, and I told them that the business might get shut down, I might lose my house, all those things. And they'd say, how do you stay so calm? Okay, I mean, you can be out on the street tomorrow. And I said, listen, as long as I have my health, and as long as I have my family, okay, I can rebuild that. I don't want to, but I think I have the talent to rebuild what I have to, if I couldn't. I'm gonna work as hard as I possibly can, but that separation of achievement or even potential failure and still loving myself and loving my family really helped me get through the hardest times. Now, I did other things. I meditated. I ran on the beach. We lived in Del Mar by the beach. I'd get up every day and I'd run along the beach, and I'd say to myself, okay, success is if I can run along the beach tomorrow and see the waves crash. If I can see the waves crash tomorrow, I'm successful. We do it one day at a time. And you do things, I write poetry, I do whatever it takes to help me stay positive. Any questions? Everybody awake? Okay. Third, okay, and this is really for those of you who want to become entrepreneurs and who want to build businesses or work in businesses. The real secret is we all need to become a customer expert. We need to know our customers through and through. My executives would come to me and say, Richard, what do you think about this product or this strategy? And I would say, don't ask me, go ask the customer. The customer has all of our answers. All great companies start by solving real problems for someone else, for their customer. They're not chasing money. Money is just a reflection of the value you create for your customers. So many people think the ideas just come out of thin air and are geniuses, but it really comes from you being curious, having empathy, and the courage to follow your instincts. You talk to so many of the entrepreneurs, and they had this wild idea, and they started something in their garage, and they built it up. But it's that instinct that they listen to follow up. You know, it's interesting. My father taught me very early on that building a successful company is just like building a championship basketball team. I said, what do you mean? He says, if you're playing basketball and you stand at half court and dribble the ball and look at the scoreboard, nothing changes. But if you forget the scoreboard and focus on putting the ball in the basket, the score goes up by itself. And in business, putting the ball in the basket is really just pleasing customers. It's giving the customer what they want. I always believe we get rewarded in direct proportion to the needs we fill. If you find a small little need, okay, you get rewarded small. If you find a big need, you get rewarded in a big way. I know with the latex glove business, a good example is, well, I'll tell you later. So the other thing is that customers have all of our answers. So if you don't know something, ask your customer. They'll ask your friends, what do you need? What do they need? What do your parents need? Find some needs out there, okay? And talk to your customers about the benefits of your products, not what just the features are. The other important lesson to learn is no is the first step of any sale. And this is both in business and even at home, okay? So if someone says yes to what you want to sell them, you're taking an order. If somebody says no, okay, then you have to find what are their objections. So if you find out every single objection, overcome them, they'll give you all their money. Now, the issue is they won't tell you their objections sometimes. A great story is when my daughter Charlie was 16, she wanted to go to a party. And she went to my wife, and my wife says, no, you can't go. And she says, well, what's your objection? She says, don't ask me that. Go take that to your father, okay? But she says, no, So she told her one objection about having the parents there at the time. Step by step, she went over objection by objection. And at the end, my wife had no objections left, and she let her go to the party. So anything, when you want something, find out what their objections are, okay? Address them, and keep going until they're out of objections. Then you end up getting what you want. Don't tell your parents I told you that, though. The other thing is, when I went into customers, you say, how do you find out what your customer wants? Well, my favorite line, and it has to do with really even tough customers, things like that, is I ask the question, what would you like to do today that you can't, that have the biggest impact on your life? So let me repeat that. What would you like to do today that you can't, that have the biggest impact on your life? And basically, they always say, you mean personally or professionally? And I always say, well, tell me first personally, because when you sell, you want to connect heart to heart. You want to connect someone's heart. And then tell me in business-wise. And there's a story, I went into a customer in Pittsburgh, big hospital, and Baxter was their longtime customer. We could never get in there. The salesman says, it's not even worth going in there. He says, give me your toughest customer. I went there and asked him that same question. I said, so he told me about his niece who had a cleft mouth or something. He said, I'd love to help her. I said, okay, now what about business? So he said, well, I have enough gloves, but they're on the wrong floor. I just can't get them in the right place, so I have to buy so many gloves. I said, okay, I couldn't help him, but thank you very much for letting me know. We finished the meeting, and I go to one of my friends who's on the board of a company, and they had these carts that moved from one area to another, okay? So I said, call the fellow, the buyer there. He called him, and that was it. 6 months later, I get a call from the buyer saying, would you please come in and see me? So I flew into Pittsburgh, went to see him. And he said, I'd like to buy some gloves for you. I said, what changed? He says, you solved my biggest problem. Okay, I now use those carts. I can move them from floor to floor. I know where they are all the time. Okay, so I solved his biggest problem, and now he gave me his next order. So again, find out what the customer's biggest need is, what their biggest problem is, and go and see if you can solve it. Wayne Gretzky had a great line. I don't know if you know Wayne Gretzky. He was probably the best hockey player who ever lived. And in the locker room after one of the games, one of the sports writers said to him, Wayne, you're not very big, you don't skate fast, and you don't have a very hard slap shot. How are you the best hockey player who's ever lived? And in his very modest way, he said, I just skate to where the puck is going to be. Let me repeat that. I just skate to where the puck is going to be. And in business, it's the same thing. Figure out what your customers are going to need in the future, okay, and give it to them. Help them skate to where the puck is going to be. So an example of this, becoming a customer expert and finding a need, is we had a powdered glove. So back in the late 80s, all gloves were powdered to get off the molds and on and off your hands. Anyway, we got the first one to get the FDA approval of a hypoallergenic, powder-free, hypoallergenic powdered glove. We took them out to the customers, because remember, customers have the answers, right? And I said, how do you like them? And invariably, they said, could you give us less powder? So police didn't want to get on the blue uniforms. The hospitals didn't want to get into the equipment. So I went back to our engineers in Malaysia, and I said, hey, can you make me a powder-free glove? And they said, well, no one else is doing that. Why do you want to do that? And I said, that's because that's what the customer wants. So it took them 6 months. We ended up making, they came up with the glove, and they could make it consistently. But the first month, they could only make 1 million gloves, which was not big on the scale we were working on. So at the time, we couldn't even sell powder gloves for 3.5 cents. But when we went out to sell it, I said, we don't have many, let's try and sell them for 8 cents. My salespeople said, no way, you can't do that. I said, why not? So, and when we were selling the gloves at 3.5 cents powdered, we were making no money. At this rate, we were making 70%, 70% margin. Anyway, first month we sold 1 million, second month powder-free, 2 million. We ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for 8 years, and we couldn't keep up. So the customers really wanted a powder-free glove. 10 years later, okay, when we sold the company, we were making 6 billion gloves. We were selling $250 million, and the margins were still 60%, 60. Okay, I'm not saying to brag that, but I'm saying that's a reflection of the size of the need we found. So as you're looking for things, you don't need to find the biggest thing, but you'll get rewarded directly in proportion to the needs you fill. Any questions, comments, compliments? Okay, next one. Giver's gain. Okay, this is a universal law. So the universe has many universal laws. Gravity is a universal law. You're never going to change that, okay? Giver's gain is what you give in one place comes back somewhere else. You give over here, it comes back somewhere else. Okay? At the academy here, we teach Tikkun Olam, we teach about giving back, helping others. We're very lucky. But the real issue is that what you give out into the world comes back to you manyfold. So you give what you want to receive. Do you want trust? You give out trust. Do you want love? You give out love. Do you want money? You give away money. Okay? I don't care if it's $18 or $180 or whatever number it is. The act of giving inspires the universe to help support you. And it's a lesson that we all need to do very early on. So we all need to understand the importance of service, philanthropy, and contributing to something larger than ourselves. Many times as teenagers, even 20-year-olds, okay, the world revolves around ourselves. And when we realize that we're just part of a whole universe, okay, that you want to do something good, give, help, spend time. I'm just preaching to the choir here because the school really teaches it already. But never forget that even when you leave here. I talk a lot, and this is later in life for you guys, but I talk about success to significance. Success is what we create for ourselves, but significance is what we create for other people. So right now, as you leave school, you go on, you're trying to build your own life up, and that's important. But once you start getting going, find ways to give back, even small bits. Build it and build and build it, and it'll help support you. And it's never too early to leave a legacy. Okay, you're all old enough now. What do you want to do with your lives? What do you want to be remembered for? So don't wake up at the end of your life and say, okay, how do I look back at what was my legacy? When you're young, say, what do I want to be remembered for? What legacy do I want to leave? Then take those steps in order to achieve that. And then the real reward of entrepreneurship, and I'm a big fan of entrepreneurship, you got to have a heart. Okay, you have to have enough fortitude that things are going to go wrong and you're going to fix it. But the rewards for entrepreneurship is really making a difference in this world. It's above and beyond each one of us, but it's how do we make the world a better place? I mean, a good example in my own life is we moved to San Diego in the end of 1987. We moved, had boxes, moved into the house. The very next morning, my wife says to me, okay, I need to go down to UJF and give them a $10,000 donation. I said, whoa, that's a lot of money. I said, but we just got here. We don't know anybody. She says, let me teach you something, okay? We're going to be part of the community. You want to make more money? You have to give away money first. This can help people we don't even know. So give it away and see what happens. And like usual, she was really right, and we're very fortunate. We've been blessed with health, kids, financial success, help building a school. We've done a lot of good things, and it's really come back to us in many, many ways. The final one I want to talk about is learn to love yourself. Learn to love yourself and become your own best friend. I mentioned that before. Okay, I would tell you all of the challenges and the misfortunes I faced, okay, by loving myself, it really gave me the strength to navigate through seemingly impossible moments. There were times where I cried myself to sleep, where there was no hope going forward. I mean, it was just really, really tough. But never did I really lose the fact that, I am my own best friend. I'm going to make it through this. And as long as we can keep our health, we'll be fine. And remember, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. You want to find people you love to work with, okay, and you love what you do. And until you get there, okay, keep trying. Now, a lot of people ask me the question, how do I find an opportunity if I don't find it, a passion? And I said, well, if you don't have a passion and you're looking for something to do, find somebody else who has a passion, okay, who has good values, and then follow them, join them, because they'll have other passionate people around them. And then maybe those passionate people will find their own passion and take you with them. Or maybe it'll ignite passion within you. But really, don't give up on yourself. Find something that you really love to do. Because in life, it's really about heart-to-heart connections. Okay? Create authentic relations all through your life. Even at my age, at any age. We're always trying to connect to people. And it feels really good to do that. Not only for us, but for them too. A couple quotes I really like. Remember, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Show them how much you care. Great salespeople, all the great salespeople I've ever had work for me, they all care about their customers. They love the customers more than our company, which is good. You want them to do that, okay? But you really have to let people know that you care about them. And if you really want to feel good about yourself, just start doing things for other people. And you see how much it elevates our own soul and helps us. In closing, okay, I want to share with you a poem I wrote 45 years ago, okay? And it's called Eternal Happiness. And the gist of it is that if we are dependent, if we meet other people and we have relationships and we're dependent on somebody else for our happiness, it can go away. That's where loving yourself really counts. And it goes like this. Our lifetimes pass so swiftly in the search for what is real. It often takes another's heart to know what we can feel. And though love's bond with friendship is the strongest ever known, its inner peace, life's eternal happiness, we all must discover on our own. For love that brings us happiness blinds with strength, knowing we are sure. But what if we awake one day and that love remains no more? Our hearts will fill with loneliness and emptiness abound. We will have lost our happiness until another love is found. But a happiness with one's own true self, not an easy bond to make, allows our hearts to pour out love without the need to take. And then, if we be blessed with love, found only wished upon a star, do we first begin our journey in search for who we really are. So if we find everlasting love, the one fate has meant to be, together we will inspire him to set our spirits free. But if it's just another love to teach us how to care, we each will have our own inner peace and happiness still left to share. And so basically, before I open it up for questions, is you're at such a great time of your life. You have it all in front of you, but it's really up to you. It's how you make your choices, who you make your choices as your friends, and who you as businesses, okay? What you give back and things like that. So remember, it's all on you. It's not your parents. It's nobody else. You have all the opportunity. You're going to face more challenges today than any generation, okay? We have artificial intelligence. We have all sorts of things going on. But the bottom line is be true to yourself. Try and be happy every day, okay? And try and help other people as much as you can. So thank you very much.
All right. Guys, we have about 10 minutes left for some questions. So I'm just going to open it up. If you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll bring you the mic, and you can just say your name, maybe your grade, and go ahead and ask your question. So who wants to start? And if you could stand up.
Good afternoon. My name is Max Jacklinzer, and I'm a junior. My question was, when you're in business and you're making decisions or you're taking a risk or you're making an investment, what are some of the factors you consider and what's your thought process?
Well, I always start at the customer. So the question is, so I look at, if I'm investing in the business or starting a business, I say, how big is the market? Is there a need? What's the need out there? Okay? And if I'm not running it myself, I bet on the jockey, not the horse. I said, what's the experience of the person doing it? What does it look like? How passionate are they? How capable are they? What are their biggest challenges and things like that? So again, I think it's really important. If I'm running a business, okay, I try and hire people who are smarter than me in any one area, and I just try and become a customer expert, okay? But really, the customer need, now, it changes. Customer needs don't stay the same. They keep changing over time, and competition tries to do the same thing. So it's really about, the importance is have a customer feedback loop. Ask the customer what they want. How's it going? Stay in touch with them. That's really the only thing you can do, and then it comes down to timing. In my first two businesses, I took advantage of government regulation. So in the ICES business, we were selling Italian ices to the schools. We're doing about $1 million of business, and then the USDA banned junk foods. No Coca-Cola, no potato chips, no Italian ices. So behavior was changing. And so I went out to our customers and said, what are you going to do? You have to feed the kids. And they said to me, if you could take sugar out and put in 2 ounces of juice, not only will we buy it, but we'll put it serve it on a school lunch menu. So the customer told me what to do. We went out, we put apple juice in, took out sugar, the thing exploded, took off, looked like wildfire. In the latex glove business, as I told you before, I asked the customer how they liked the powder glove, and they said, give me no powder. So we were able to figure it out. And then the issue is we made a powder-free glove. Then everyone started copying us. Then we put texture on the gloves, okay? Everyone started copying us. So then we put texture only on the fingertips. So the real issue is you have to continue to innovate, continue to stay ahead. I always think there's a billion Chinese trying to do the same thing I'm doing right now. Okay, so how do I stay ahead of them?
Hi, I'm Harrison Koenig. I'm a senior. And I guess my question is, what advice would you give to someone who's unsure about entrepreneurship as a whole?
You won't know until you try it. So the real issue is you have to have you have to be willing to accept change. Entrepreneurship is about change, 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 change. Okay? Some people are not made to change. They just want a 9 to 5 and go home, and that's okay. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you love something, if you want to prove yourself out, if you just love doing things that are hard to do, okay, with a group of people who have the same passion as you, I would encourage everyone to try it. If you don't like it, then you always go back. But without trying it, you'll never know. And nobody can tell you. Your parents can't, I can't. But, you know, if you find something you get excited about, it's amazing how good you can feel about it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Antonio Gerson, and I'm a junior. In terms of the way you think, how do you kind of guide yourself into finding problems in society, and how do you identify those problems and go about them?
Well, there are so many problems in our society, it's not very hard to find them. Okay, the question is, how do you decide which ones to address, maybe? Is that more of a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I take a look at where I can make a difference, okay? Both as we donate money, okay, and I donate time. So I don't want to put a little money into a big thing, it doesn't make a difference. So the real issue is what's personal. You know, many people, if they have an eye problem, or they have, you know, some problem, they'll donate to that cause. You know, my wife and I, we believe in Jewish education, Okay, we want continuity, the Jewish people. That's important to us. The way you get that is you get kids going to high school. So this has always been a passion. Okay, we've always given here and led here because of that passion. But the idea is there's no one right thing. There are so many needs out there, so many great organizations out there, whether it's feeding the hungry, battered women. I mean, there's just so many needs. Find something that you can support, that feels good inside of you, that you want to make a difference in. And then go do that. And it might grow from there. From there, you might meet somebody who has another one. So life is all about who you meet, okay? They take you with them. It's really amazing. Just leave yourself open to opportunity. And don't close your mind to anything and see what feels right. And their advice is, try it. If you try something, it doesn't feel good, stop and go find something else. Stand up, yeah.
Hi, my name is Nadine Schwartzblatt, and I'm a senior. My question is about how to actually go about getting to the customers, because you talk about trying to learn what they're thinking about your product and what they want from your product. But I was just wondering, how do you get to the customers? How do you speak to them?
When you say how do you speak to them, it depends what role you're playing. If you're a salesperson, that's your job. You go to the customer. If you're an executive, you ask a salesperson to take you in there. So I think the real issue is there's no one right way, but everyone's a little different. Every customer's a little different. But if you make your mind up to say, I want to go speak to a customer, go speak to them and ask them, what would you like to do today that you can't? They'll stop for a second and think. And many times they'll say, that's a good question. Okay, and then they slow down and they help share with you. And these are people who wouldn't give you the time of day. They're nasty, all sorts of things. But as soon as you kind of connect heart to heart, they'll open up, they'll share with you. And if you can't get into the customer, then ask other people how do I get to the customer. A lot of times I'll call people and say, hey, do you know somebody at this company? I need to go see somebody. So ask for help. It's a strength. It's not necessarily just your own. Okay, thank you, Nadine.
Hi, my name is Yoni Sanoff. I'm a junior. I just wanted to ask you, what inspired you to get involved with the Suns?
Well, what inspired me to get involved with the Phoenix Suns? I played basketball and tennis in high school. I played basketball in college. And my son played basketball. In fact, I coached here at the academy for a year or two. And I'm just a basketball junkie. And one day I was on the golf driving range, and a friend of mine said, did you know Robert Sarver was buying the Suns? And I said, no. And Robert, in the 90s, when I was in the medical business, sent me he was a banker. He sent me all sorts of medical opportunities to look at. And I wrote it up and sent it back and told him why I wouldn't invest in it. So I called him up. I said, Robert, okay, how'd you steal this from all the billionaires? Because he was wealthy, but not that wealthy. And he told me the entire story. And at the end, he says, and by the way, I'm putting my investor team together. Are you interested? And I'm never lost for words. However, I had no idea what to say. And so he said, look, I'm flying to Phoenix tomorrow. Come with me and evaluate this opportunity like you did the medical business. And I did, and one thing led to another, and it was just so much fun and really was exciting. But opportunity, the other thing is, you do good things and opportunities come up. You get lucky, okay? Just continue to do good things and opportunities show up, and keep your eyes open.
Thank you.
Go Suns.
Hi, Nicolas Hinic. I'm a junior. I want to know what inspired you to get into the glove business?
I tease. People ask me now what I do for a living. And I say, I'm trying to stay out of the way of opportunity. I'm just not very good at it. So, we sold the Italian ices business to Coca-Cola. I moved to Houston for 2 years. Got finished there, moved to San Diego. I was 34 years old. Okay, after a month, I was itching for something to do. I wanted some people to lead, something to build, and I just happened to be lucky. And I called my father and said, I have to find something. And one of his associates had invested or started to invest with a glove company. And they needed capital to build, and they needed operating experience, which I had. And they made the introduction, and so, I got very lucky. I mean, it just, I can't tell you how to get lucky other than give away a lot of money and you get lucky.
Thank you.
All right. Real quick before we wrap up, appreciate the questions and the thoughts you guys shared. Mr. Jaffe brought books. If you're in my Ideas to Products class and you would like it autographed or signed by Mr. Jaffe, you can hang up and grab it, or hang out and grab it. Otherwise, I'll give it to you in class. The other thing I'll say is you may have noticed his name on the campus, and so you might want to thank him for his contribution to this excellent place you have here. And
You should thank my wife. She's the one that drove it.
thank you very much, Mr. Jaffe. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Adam. Take care. Good luck, everybody.